Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And I think this week we're going to open up with music news. Music news, music news. Okay, so I have a few music news items. The first piece of music news I have is that U2 have a new album out. Now, Joy, have you heard of this yet?
I have not.
Okay, so the album's called Songs of Surrender. And I had a little bit of a listen to it today. And what it is it's like U2 unplugged, basically. They've re-recorded a lot of their original songs on this album called Songs of Surrender. And it's just like acoustic or stripped down version. So you got Pride in the Name of Love, Vertigo, One, that kind of stuff. And it's a sort of a accompanying soundtrack to Bono's new book that he has out, which is called Surrender, 40 Songs, One Story. So it sort of follows along with that. But, I mean, people get excited for a new U2 album, and I've heard some U2 fans say, I don't know.
I mean, it's probably because they were excited for something new, and it's kind of just a rebranding of what they already know. On the flip side, is it like a biography? Is that what the book is? Or
yeah, it's his memoir, basically.
Okay, so maybe the songs are prestigiously, that's not what I would say, particularly placed in order to kind of match that, the way it transcends in his life, which would make sense why it is kind of a rebranding of what they already know. But as a fan, I could see you just getting excited and hoping for something new. Exactly,
and it's just sort of acoustic-y MTV Unplugged style versions of U2 songs that you've heard 1,000 times. I mean, it's not bad. As I said, I listening to it a little bit today whilst driving around doing work that I had to do, but it didn't really strike me as anything I'd probably want to revisit in a hurry.
Well, and U2 is not exactly the hard rock of the world anyway. Stripping them down wouldn't be that much of a change.
Exactly. There we are.
Sorry, U2, if you're listening. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think Adam Clayton and the drummer, who is fine, by the way, they both listen to the No Name Music Cast.
Of course, always.
Well, there we go. Right, another music news item. Rick Allen, the drummer from Def Leppard, was assaulted. Did you hear about this?
I did.
Yeah, incredibly sad. He was staying at a really fancy pants hotel, which he should do because he's a rock star. And he was smoking a cigarette. I mean, that's his business outside the hotel. And then somebody assaulted him, knocked him to the ground, and he had an incredibly severe concussion, from what I understand. And I think he's doing better, but I think he's not as good as he could be.
Oh, did they decide, did the person know him? Was it a freak accident? I just saw the headline. I didn't read into it.
Yeah, it was a very deliberate attack. I think the person maybe wasn't looking to assault Rick Allen. They were just looking to assault anybody. And then a lady came out to help Rick Allen, and the person assaulted that lady too. So I think it was just somebody who was just, I don't know what they were doing, but they were looking to try and just stir something up.
Well, I wonder if they even knew he was a celebrity, because in some way that would make it worse. Even if you came at this and you did something, obviously this person's not in the right mental state, but I wonder if they even knew they were assaulting a celebrity. It was going to be a huge story.
Yeah, celebrity or no celebrity. I mean,
it should be, but in our society.
Exactly. But I mean, as I said, the lady that came out to help Rick was equally hurt too. So, I mean, it's a rough scene. I know that Def Leppard have a new album out as well, which again is not anything new. It's like an orchestral versions of Hysteria. And I've heard one of the tracks, Animal. And it's just, again, it's like, meh.
That doesn't sound very interesting.
What they've done is they've just pulled the vocals off Hysteria and they've pulled some of the guitar tracks of Hysteria, and they've just hired the Royal Philharmonic, and they've just put the two things together. It doesn't add anything new because, playing in an orchestra with a rock band or playing or having an orchestra playing with a rock band, should I say, is a well-worn rock trope, and everyone's done it. Kiss has done it. Metallica's done it. They've all done it. But they've tried to do something different with this, but it failed for me.
Well, Tim's very negative at the top of this episode.
Exactly. And I also have one more music news item, which I'm going to be negative about as well. So, as we all know, I've had a Spotify journey. Yes. I've gone on a streaming journey, and I've landed on this Spotify idea. And I've been using it since end of January. and I've accepted it as into part of my life now. You know, it's warmly in my being, this Spotify business. I've got huge playlists. I've got things going on. It's all happening.
All the stuff.
Exactly. So Spotify had some kind of event called Stream On, which is like their conference for developers and new product things coming out with and what have you. And in their infinite wisdom, they've decided to change the front homepage from, rather than having all your playlists listed there, albums that they recommend, playlists that they recommend, artists they recommend that goes against you, you know, against all the things that you've listened to. That's gone. So now the homepage is an infinite scroll TikTok experience.
Oh, I don't like that.
No. And the worst thing about it is when you open the app, if you start scrolling through this TikTok type thing, which supposedly are albums and artists you've never heard of and podcasts you've never heard of, as you scroll through it, it auto plays audio clips and stops your music playing.
And just like a little sample of each thing, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So, like, you know, the way I would use Spotify is you'd set something going, and then while it's going, you think, oh, let me see if I'll add some of those tracks to an album, or let me see if let me see what I'm going to put on next. So you do that, and you scroll through this TikTok feed thing, and then your music will stop playing, and it'll just play these clips.
Is this like a beta testing thing?
No, they're rolling it out. Apparently, rolling it out to everyone. I'm lucky.
Great.
Actually, I'm going to look right now. I didn't have it before we started recording. Let's have a look. I still don't have it, luckily. But
I didn't have it today when I was listening to music.
No, the response pretty much is incredibly negative. Like if you look on Twitter, you look on their support forums, you look on the Reddit page for Spotify, there's an official one and an unofficial one. There are pages and pages and pages of people complaining about this, and everyone's saying, hey, Apple Music's looking pretty good right now. And a lot of people saying they've cancelled and stuff like that. I'll
just go back to YouTube Premium. As much as it annoys me, I'll still just do it because I already paid for it anyway. You know what I mean, Tim? Cancel Spotify and just go back for it. Is what it is.
Exactly.
That defeats the purpose of listening to Spotify, because like I can get that kind of service on it, like a bunch of other places. When you're going through YouTube or you're going through Netflix or you're going through Hulu now, they do that now. They start auto playing as you're going through. And it's annoying because like half the time I don't even care what's auto playing. And two, like that's the experience I get with every other thing. It just seems, you know what I mean? The point of Spotify was I wanted something that was close to kind of what I was used to back in the day with like my Groove Shark and stuff like that, where I can make my playlists, I can listen to my playlist, it can recommend me things. But my favorite part about Spotify is making the playlists.
Absolutely. So you'd be listening to a playlist that you've made and you think, oh, let me add I don't know, some tracks to it. So you would go into the front page to see what's recommended, and it's just going to be this endless stream of rubbish.
Album covers.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, way to start off negative. I'm going to take it a different light. We're going to bring this back to something that I thought was kind of fun. So I was looking up this, and I'm going to butcher this name. I sent it to Tim, and I Googled it, and it was, did you listen to it, Tim?
I did. It wasn't quite what I came up with when I listened to it.
They're a Chelvam. Her name's her first name is Mira, Samira, and then her last name is Farah Chelvam. She's a flutist, composer, and lyricist from Norway. And so what was cool was I came across this thing. She did an experimental kind of music festival, and she tends to do some kind of avant-garde type stuff. Norway, you know, but I thought this was cool. They're in a swimming pool, Tim. She did like, so I'll just show you. Like she told everybody, they didn't know what they were signing up for, but she told everybody bring their bathing suit. Oh. So basically, she held it in a front-facing heated pool. So, and so when they were on there, it's in a little thing just saying, bring a swimsuit. Nobody knew what it was. But basically, it's an experimental festival where she does like kind of all kinds of electrical music, and she played with the lights, and like it reflected off the pool and all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And she's done ones before where like they were camping in a tree, like it's like a little I'll show, maybe we'll post these photos if you want to write this down, Tim. We'll post these photos on her or this article, and then like they're in the woods and they're in a cave, and what she does though, and what's really cool is she takes whatever the experience experience is. Like for this one, they're in a pool. And so when you buy tickets to her, you don't know what you're going to. And apparently this is one of the first ones that had ever been done in a pool. That's why it was news. But she plays with whatever the play is. So like when you're in an cave, like, you know, the sound's reverbing, or when you're in the pool, the light's coming off and then the reverbing with the water and different things like that. So I just thought it was kind of unique and a fun change. And if I had to pay as much as I have to go see a concert, you might as well I might as well get a full experience out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds a lot more interesting than going to the Greensboro Coliseum and sitting 40 rows back to hear whoever. It's like, yeah, come to a swimming pool and have an experience. I like that.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. And it's kind of cool because the people don't know. They know that she's going to do something kind of crazy, or I don't know if crazy is the right word, but different. But they don't know what they're getting until they get like a little thing that shows, here's what's happening. I thought that would be fun.
That's nice. Maybe with Flagler Hill, we need to think of something like that. I don't know.
I guess you'd have to. I mean, the rec center does have indoor pools that are heated.
Maybe we could do a gig at the rec center, but with the exercise equipment. So we'd all be performing whilst on an elliptical or something, and everyone has to get on an elliptical to watch. I don't know. Somebody
would fall off and like break an ankle or something.
Yeah, it's a lawsuit waiting to happen, I think.
Everybody have to sign a waiver to come to your concert. I mean, you guys are probably having to find a new venue considering one of your current ones is no longer in order.
That's correct. Yeah, the Fatback Soul Shack on Roanoke Street has unfortunately closed. Now, the person who owned it is a controversial figure, and we won't go into that business. However, purely from a somewhere that all the local bands play perspective, it's not cool that it closed.
Yep, and I saw that they were selling this. That Sheila bought everything, and they bought the stage, the big stage, the picture.
Oh wow! What's it going to be? Are they going to keep it going on as a restaurant, or what's going to happen?
I don't know. I just saw people talking about it on one of those Facebook yard sale pages.
Okay.
It was like a public, like, you know, when those big auctions kind of come, they have to like make it public. You know, who buys it type thing. So people had found out, but I don't know what the plan is. And for those who don't know, because this is very small town, like you wouldn't know that if you lived here. There's a big company that lives near us, Tim. Yes, they do business near us that own a lot of the area and a lot of buildings, and they have bought it out. And we're just curious because Tim's hoping maybe they'll make, you know what I think we need? I have said this. I did a little thing. Our town actually talked about, like, they sent a little thing out for you to like, right back. What do we need? I want a big concert venue somewhere near Southwest Virginia. I don't want to have to drive. Roanoke's fine, but I don't want to drive to Charlotte or Greensboro or even Richmond to see a normal band.
No, that's absolutely. The Roanoke Civic Center is sort of the closest place to here. But yeah, there's nothing much else other than that. I mean, we have the Harvester in Rocky Mount, which gets remarkably good acts considering it's the size of your front room, literally. And like Toto played there recently. Ace Frehley played there recently. But yeah, they should bulldoze that whole thing and then build a arena. I don't know.
Or just an outdoor venue. I mean, something, you know what I mean? It's close to what you get in Charlotte at the PNC. And I know we have enough people in Southwest Virginia, people who drive up from Galax and Hillsville and Pulaski and, you know, the neighboring areas, even Marion would be closer for those kind of people. So that's what I want. That's what I hope they do with it. Not that anyone called or talked to me. So
yeah, if I had to guess, what will happen is that they will sell the stage. It will get carted off. They'll bulldoze the whole thing, and then it will be a Kia dealership or something.
I was going to say it's going to be another car. Well, it's Christiansburg. It'll either be a car lot, a car wash, or a bank. Those are the only three things we get. Every time I see a thing pop up, I say, is it going to be a car wash or a bank? Is it going to be a car wash or a bank? Everybody in Christiansburg has the cleanest cars. Tim can testify.
Absolutely. My Night Industries Nissan is squeaky clean at all times.
Because every time we turn, it's like our equivalent of a Starbucks on every corner is a car wash. All right. Well, not related to any of this. I have one question for Tim that I thought was funny. I wanted to hear what he said. I have my example, but I wanted to give Tim his example. And so the question is, what is your funniest reply all you've seen? Like when someone accidentally replies all, what's the funniest one you've seen?
Yeah, it's hard to think of a funny one because I tell you what happens. Like where I work, we have a group called All Staff, tilde All Staff. Mm-hmm. And you have to be on a special group.
Troy was in that group.
Yeah, in order to send to that. And that sends to everybody in the organization I work for. What used to happen is that you'd send an all-staff email about whatever, and then people would reply to the all-staff group, and then it would go to everyone, and then it became a mess. And then they changed it where you had to be on an allow list to send to it. But I'm one of the moderators of the allow. So if somebody does sends to all staff, it comes to me to approve if you're not on the list. So I get those, if not every day, every other day to moderate them. Mm-hmm. And most of them are not that funny. They're just, you read it and you're like, oh, I don't know if I really wanted to know that.
So mine is not really funny as much as awkward for the person who sent it, and I still think about it to this day. And I feel so bad for this guy. I don't know what he thought he was responding to. We got an all-staff email when I was the HR admin at Kroger. Kroger being a grocery store, for those who don't know. It was sadly about somebody's passed away in the company, like some bigwig in the company passed away. And this guy, I don't know who he was. He had to have been like a maintenance dude or a porter person or something. He responded back complaining about, I can't even say this. He replied all, which first of all, why would Kroger allow someone to be able to reply all to a message that goes out to the entire national company? I don't know, Tim, but that's a debate for another time. But he responded with complaining about their trash hadn't been picked up that day.
Dear.
Of all the things. And I remember I was in my office and I popped my head into because all the managers have like one big room, and then I had my own private office because I did interviews, terminations, things like that. And everybody was like, wow. Like we were all just staring at each other like, of all the worst things you could do that moment, that person probably wanted to die. Because, it was this heartfelt message about somebody who had dedicated their whole life to the company and responded by complaining that they hadn't picked up their trash.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, that is a poorly timed response, I think it's fair to say.
I don't know. I feel like he thought, like, when you click emails and you have a bunch open, he thought I was responding to another one he had open or something. Mm-hmm. Because we could contact, like the trash people, and they'd come pick and do like a big pickup if you needed it. Because, grocery stores produce a lot of trash. Is what it is. But I'm guessing he thought that's what he was doing. But man, I would have been like, I would have called in sick for the rest of the week.
Yeah, I would have said, peace, I'm off. I'll see you later. I tell you what, though, my friend who I used to play music with, Jules, who we sadly lost a number of years ago, he used to tell this story. He had an internship at IBM, and this was in the mid-90s, I suppose. And he was incredibly tech savvy. He was, he knew about all this stuff long before anyone did. And he was one of my early mentors with building websites and tech stuff. He really knew his business. So he was doing this internship at IBM, and I think it was somewhere in the UK. But he wasn't quite that savvy at that point. And he decided in his infinite wisdom he was going to email an episode of Airwolf to a bunch of people in the office where he worked, which was like an entire floor or something.
Okay.
And this was before, a lot of video compression and stuff. So I don't know how big this file was, but it was probably far bigger than you should email, and certainly far bigger than you should email in 1995 or 1996. I was like,
could you even do that in 96?
So he attaches this email, sends it off to this group. Not only did he crash IBM UK's mail system.
Of course. I knew that was coming. All right.
He crashed the networking equipment that connected IBM UK to IBM US. The whole thing went down.
I would quit my job and you never see me again, or my internship or whatever it is. Like, I just pick up my purse and walk out the door. You'll never see me again.
Yeah, and somehow he finished his internship, but he told that story a number of times, and it was...
Oh, Lord. I guess that's one of those, you think you're having a bad day at work. I mean, Tim, nothing beats the time. I was just telling Charlie, remember I changed the settings in the payroll system so people could change their own passwords to clock in and out, and it sent out an email to everybody to set up security questions, and everybody lost their mind.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. I should have worn. I didn't know it was going to be a whole thing, guys. I remember walking into Angie's office and being like, "So, I did a thing, and now it's a whole big deal."
I'm of the opinion when you mess things up at work, it is far easier just to walk into your manager's office and say, "Hey, I messed this up. How can I fix it?"
Yes, that's exactly how I've lived my life, and it always works out better than if you try to hide it. All right, this is a music podcast, though, and we have not talked about music once since we have started this podcast, so I should probably get into the topic.
Okay, and it's your turn to pick the topic. So what is the topic this week?
So speaking of Spotify, when we our last episode that is going to go live is an episode with Phil Reese, and we discussed Spotify, and he mentioned something on there about the end of the year wrap up. Do you remember that, Tim?
The wrapped thing that you get at the beginning of December.
All right. Well, I had forgotten all about that, and Joy went and found her end of the year wrap up from last year, and I was generally curious. And to add a little spice to this, I found some interesting facts about all these songs, because some of these songs are going to be songs we know because they're songs I listen to all the time. So I'm going to bring them up, right? But I went through, and each song I found something very interesting on them. So.
Okay.
And this is in no particular order. I hit the shuffle buttons. I don't know which song is the most played and which is the least and blah, blah, blah. But my first song is Raspberry Beret by Prince.
Yeah, now that is a fabulous song. I think that's early on in the Prince catalog, early on in his career. It's certainly when you got into your later Sign of the Times Prince. I mean, that's a polar opposite away from Raspberry Beret. But still, Raspberry Beret is a great song, and it is the kind you'd find in a secondhand store.
It is. So Prince originally recorded Raspberry Beret in 1982, so Tim was right on the money. He reworked it with his new reformed Revolution band, which had just crystallized into what would become the fan favorite lineup, which is Brown Mark on bass, Bobby Z on drums, Wendy Mevlon and Lisa Coleman and Dr. Fink on keyboard, backing guitar and backing vocals. That was all them together. If you blinked in the mid 80s, you miss it because this incarnation of the Revolution broke up by 86. So 82 to 86. Prince fired everyone but Dr. Fink.
Okay, I thought he kept Wendy and Lisa on, but I know that I actually love Wendy and Lisa's music. They sort of had a solo career outside of the Revolution, and their album Fruit at the Bottom is absolutely superb. They had a single called Lolly Lolly, which was on MTV, heavy rotation. I like that track, but I didn't realize that Prince said goodbye to Wendy and Lisa because they both of them are incredibly talented.
Well, and this is, from what I was gathering, this is like the band everybody really loved with Prince. Like this was their favorite backup band with him. I don't know much about anybody else besides Lisa and Wendy, like you were saying. And Dr. Fink, I know, played keyboard with him for a long time. I didn't get into, I guess it was never really released why he fired everyone. But I will say, I get the perspective Prince could be a little bit of a diva. So who knows?
I have a first-hand or second-hand Prince story that I know is true. So I used to get my guitars fixed by a guy called Charlie Chandler, and he used to be part of Chandler Guitars, and then he set up his own business when Chandler Guitars folded. So he is probably the best guitar repairer luthier in the entire UK. So the people that come in his shop are your Gary Moores, your David Gilmour from Pink Floyd, or, they send their guitar techs in. But, every big name has gone through that shop. Metallica toured the UK, needed stuff done. Guess where they went? Went to see Charlie Chandler. That's exactly how it is. And he had, I think it was Prince's guitar tech come in, or Prince's tour manager, or someone who was directly connected to the Prince world. And he told him this story. And apparently Prince was rehearsing with his band. It certainly wasn't this classic band, but whichever lineup of his band, New Power Generation or whatever it was, he was rehearsing with them. And he said, "Oh, man, I'm really feeling a James Brown vibe today. So that's really where my head's at. And I really want to try to get off on some of those James Brown grooves. Can you play a James Brown groove?" And they're all going, bam, 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 bam. And the whole band's grooving, having a great time. He said, "Yeah, I'm feeling this." And Prince is playing a bit of guitar and it's going on. The band's going great. And he says, "Look, just don't stop this groove. This is a cool groove. I just need to step out for a second. I'm going to come back. This is going to be fantastic." Puts his guitar down and he leaves the room. And they play for about 5 minutes and then 10 minutes and then 20 minutes and 25 minutes and half an hour. And they're like, "Where's Prince gone?" And it got to like almost an hour. And they're like, "I don't care. We're just going to stop." So they stopped. He got in a limousine and got on an aeroplane.
I can't imagine, like, what? It's not like he knew he wasn't going to get on that airplane when he like he knew he was flying out that evening.
Yeah, and I said that comes from a man who I trust, who spoke to like Prince's guitar tech or Prince's tour manager. You know, that is almost from the source.
Oh Lord, I mean that's something. I mean, maybe he just meant like, you guys are having fun, just enjoy it, blah blah blah. It's just the weird "I'll be back" thing that throws me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah,
that's what's weird about it. I mean, that's like Prince should have been on your Diva-sode, I tell you.
It's true. But the thing about Prince is he was an incredibly like, he keeps a lot of things, like he's not got a lot of publicity because he didn't go on a lot of shows. He didn't do interviews. You know what I mean? He kept everything inside. So it's hard to find these stories about him. So it's cool you know that because most people don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, have you ever seen an interview with Prince?
I think he was on Oprah or something, I think.
I can't even off the top of my head. He's one of those artists that everything was he kept his privacy, you know, his life very private. I can't think of one interview.
Because even like in the guitar universe, like a lot of these guitar magazines I'd read back in the 80s and the 90s, you know, they would talk to whoever and they'd talk about their equipment and stuff. They had a Prince article one time. And apparently even getting access to his guitar tech to take pictures of backstage equipment was like the biggest deal ever.
I mean, I guess I kind of get it, though. If you're constantly in the limelight and you want to keep your persona the way you want it to be imaged, you would protect that. Sure. To a point to that, like, because that's not to insult him. I don't mean that he's trying to, but you have to think about these big name stars, somebody like Prince or Michael Jackson or Cher or Beyonce or, you know what I mean? Any of those people, they're putting on a persona day in and day out that might not always be who they are. And in order to keep that persona, because they want those larger than life kind of figures, they have to protect that. The other thing on the flip side is he can't walk out the door. You know who Prince is as soon as you see him. He's got a very distinct face. He does that lip thing that makes it very obvious it's him, even if he changed his, you know what I mean, facial features. So like it's just another way of keeping people out of his business because paparazzi and stuff. But I feel like it's both those factors. So I get it.
But the thing is with Prince, he was a Jehovah's Witness, and part of that faith is you have to go door to door to spread the word. And apparently in Minneapolis, where he used to live, he used to do that. And I don't know whether he would not wear makeup or dress down or dress differently so people wouldn't recognize him. But I don't know. It'd be hard to keep that that kind of persona of not being seen if you're going knocking on people's doors and asking whether they're interested in being involved in something you're interested in.
Do Jehovah's Witnesses is that just mostly an American thing, or does that happen in the UK too?
No, it happens in the UK too.
I was just curious. I didn't know. All right. What's nice is if you live in Utah, you don't have to really worry about Mormons knocking on your door because everybody's already Mormon from firsthand experience, even though I'm not Mormon, everyone.
There you go.
They ship them off to do missions everywhere else but in the state. Anyway. All right. So my next song is, and like I said, in no particular order, I was very surprised by this list, Tim, and I think you will be too. It's "Love Will Keep Us Together." Captain and Tennille.
Now that is a great track. Now the Captain and Tennille album that comes from, the one that has the Captain and Tennille on the cover, that is or at least it used to be, a thrift shop staple. Like every thrift shop you went in had a copy of that. And in fact, I think I had 3 during my vinyl tenure. When I was thrifting records a lot, I worked through 3 copies, and I think I sort of cannibalized parts of them to make a really good quality one. However, that track in particular is really good.
I love that song, and it's been used in every movie since the beginning of time, in the wedding scene or the, you know what I mean? Whatever it is. It's one of those songs that we've heard 1,000 times. They use in trailers and TV commercials. What I learned about it was Neil Sedaka and Howard Greenfield wrote the song in 1973 during their last songwriting session. They've been working together since their high school days in the late 50s and early 60s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. On August 16th, 1975, an English version was going into the Hot 100 chart. And it's one of the greatest selling songs of all time or something. I didn't look it up, but I do know that it was a very high selling song. Captain Neil also had a Spanish version. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
I thought that was cool. It was the only time an act had 2 versions of the same song in different languages on different singles simultaneously in the Hot 100.
Well, that's fantastic. And I hope it's good quality Spanish, like ABBA Spanish, not David Lee Roth Spanish.
I didn't get into that, but maybe I'll let Stephanie and Alvin listen later. So apparently the entire album was re-recorded and released in Spanish after Love Will Keep Us Together did so well.
Well, there you go. Well, I mean, South America is a huge market, and if it's popular, I mean, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Exactly. Also, this is just some stupid thing they wrote in the article, but I'm going to say it because I can. It says you can tip your sailor cap to Star and Dragon, the captain, for the term yacht rock, which came into vogue in the 2010s as a way to describe mellow but uplifting music from the 70s and 80s. With his seafaring moniker and get-up, that's where they got the term. Was from him. That's where yacht rock comes from.
The words yacht rock, or the term yacht rock, is something that I became aware of maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. And I wasn't really sure what it referred to until I looked into it. And it's like Toto and Michael McDonald and stuff like that.
I only know it because there's a Family Guy episode about it, and they go on a cruise, and it's a yacht rock cruise, and they like talk about people like you're saying Michael McDonald and stuff like that.
Exactly. I mean, all that stuff is good quality music, though.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, though. I guess it's that kind of like music you'd want to listen to if you were on a yacht. Not that me and Tim own yachts, so we don't know what that music is, but
no, I would never go on a yacht because I get seasick. I like the idea of being on a boat and boating, but on a practical level, I will never go on a boat if I can help it, because at 2 minutes on the boat, I feel terrible.
I mean, that's fair. I wouldn't want to do. I mean, people generally don't like to do things, Tim, that make them sick. I mean, that's general.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I've always wanted to go up in a SpaceX rocket. I'd always want to go on a Falcon 9 and go to space and be in a dragon capsule and stuff, but I get car sick when I'm a passenger sometimes, so I don't know how I would deal with being on a spaceship.
No, yeah, that would probably be a problem for sure. Yeah, I would say skip it, Tim, because the last place I'd want to be sick is in a confined space while going into space.
and it's bad enough that you have some kind of shared lavatory affair in a tiny little capsule, but someone's throwing up in there too. It's a veritable biohazard.
You might ruin it for everybody else on said spaceship. All right, moving along, on to my next song. This is one that me and Tim have talked about very, 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 I guess very, very much. We've talked about a lot. It should be what I should have said, but this is Islands in the Stream.
Oh, I got really obsessed with this song a few years ago, where I'd wake up in the morning and the only thing I wanted to do was listen to Islands in the Stream. And I mean, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Bee Gees wrote it. Bee Gees are doing the backing vocals. How is it possible to go wrong with that combination?
It isn't. You can't. And that's kind of where my little fact comes in. So we've talked about the Bee Gees. So it was written by the Bee Gees as an R&B song, which I thought was interesting because I don't know if I would categorize it as R&B. basically, on March 10th, 2009, when Maurice Gibb appeared on the BBC breakfast program. I don't know what a breakfast program is. This is a morning show in the UK.
Yeah, breakfast time. It was probably BBC breakfast time.
That's what would be what I would guess. But it said he explained that it was written for Marvin Gaye. However, it was recorded as a duet by Kitty and Dolly, with the Gibb brothers contributing on the vocals. The Bee Gees performed the song themselves on their 1998 live album, One Night Only, which I think Tim has talked about. Mm-hmm. And the title comes from the Ernest Hemingway story that was published in 1970.
There you go.
I didn't know it was written for Marvin Gaye, though. I wouldn't have picked it as an R&B song.
No, I suppose because it's not quite 80s pop sensibility, but it's sort of that kind of idea. And I suppose maybe if you slowed it down or the instrumentation is different, it could be a classic R&B style song.
It could be, but I guess I'm just so used to hearing the version. You know what I mean? Well, and Kenny Rogers has kind of a soulful voice.
Oh, he does. I mean, as we covered on our We Are the World episode, the minute he comes in with his line, it's like a warm hug.
Exactly. So I feel like it would work. I would be curious, not that he can do it now, but I would be curious to hear if Marvin Gaye ever did like a studio version or something that was unreleased. That would be cool to hear. It's
possible. Or maybe someone as a sound-alike has done a version of Islands in the Stream.
Well, all those people listen to our podcast. So if they're listening, they can come tell us.
Absolutely. I mean, the reach of this podcast is massive, really.
We just need Antarctica. Only Antarctica will be there.
Yeah, this is not a request. We're pleading with you at this point. If you know anyone who works on a research station in Antarctica, please will you get them to download and listen to just one episode of this podcast? We would just like to cover every continent on Earth. We've got them all except Antarctica. And I mean, in reality, it means nothing, but we would just like that.
All right. So my next one is another artist we have talked about on the show. I've talked about my love for this genre of music. It is Donna Summer, Hot Stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, a stone cold disco classic.
Well, I didn't know this. Tim is going to say he probably did know this, but I had no idea that Jeff Skunk Baxter, who's, the session musician and was a member of Steely Dan, does the guitar solo on that song.
I don't think I knew that, but it doesn't surprise me. He was sort of in a legion of session players that played on everything. There was Jeff Skunk Baxter, there was Will Lee on the bass, there was Steve Lukather, there was Jeff Porcaro on the drums. There were these session aces. Some of them were based on the West Coast, some of them were based on the East Coast. And a lot of your 70s, early 80s pop rock, you look in the credits, it's all those people. And you had people before the Wrecking Crew and all that kind of stuff, but there was a collective of people that played on almost everything. So it really doesn't surprise me that it's Jeff Skunk Baxter.
I wonder why his nickname was Skunk.
I would imagine because he probably enjoyed recreational products, though I don't know that.
Oh, I didn't even think about that because I should have known that, but didn't even think. For those who don't know, some recreational things out there sometimes smell like a skunk. Didn't think about that.
Or maybe he was just a stinky man. I don't know. If Jeff Skunk Baxter wants to come in here and redeem himself, I mean, he's more than welcome to.
That's funny. All right. Well, Mr. Skunk Baxter, yes, we'll be happy to talk with you. And we won't judge you for whatever you want to do while on air. We're just happy you're here. It's fine.
Absolutely. 100%.
Anyway, so I just thought that was cool. I mean, I knew who he was. I knew he was a session musician, but I didn't know he played on that song. But it makes sense because listen to it and I hear the riff and I think about some of the other stuff he's played on. I can kind of get it. But I
can also give you another Jeff Skunk Baxter fact.
What's that?
On 9 to 5, the second verse, that line that goes, doodle-a-doon, it's like that kind of little guitar thing. That is Jeff Skunk Baxter as well.
Well, there you go. I mean, Mr. Baxter, you're killing it.
Exactly.
All right. So the next one is a song that I was surprised I listened to it enough that it made it on this list, but I kind of do love it. And it's not a band we've talked about on this podcast, but it's somebody you'll know. It's Let Your Love Flow by the Bellevue Brothers.
Mm-hmm. That's the sort of the swinging super sounds of the 70s type song. And it's...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and it's got that real kind of like... It's a real kind of cool feel to it.
Exactly. And I thought it was interesting. And the reason I want to ask Tim what this is. So it said that it returned to the UK top 50 in 2008 after being utilized in a Barclaycard television advertisement. What's a Barclaycard?
Barclaycard. Barclaycard is a UK credit card which is issued by Barclays Bank. Now, I think Barclaycard was the very first credit card that was issued in the UK. And before Visa and MasterCard and Diners Club and American Express were sort of mainstream brands, Barclaycard was the only one that was available. And certainly for a while, much how you would say Scotch tape or whiteout, regardless of whatever the product is, any credit card was a Barclaycard. I don't think that's the case now, but certainly in the 70s, early 80s, Barclaycard was your generic term for a credit card.
I mean, okay, that makes sense. I wasn't sure if it was, I was like, is it a credit card? Is Barclay like a grocery store? Well, apparently in 2008, they used Let Your Love Flow in their commercial.
Well, there we are. I mean, they're a huge global banking conglomerate. I mean, I used to have a Barclays checking account. Well, actually, I'd say checking account because my brain is in US English. What I should be saying is a current account.
All right, then. I'll take your word for it. All right. So this song was actually written by Larry Williams, who was one of Neil Diamond's roadies.
Okay.
And apparently he offered the song to Neil Diamond. Neil Diamond didn't think that it was like, his style. He just didn't really care for it. And so basically Howard Bellamy, who's one of the Bellamy brothers, was like, we just happened to have moved to Florida around 74, met the guy, and they played us a demo, and we instantly fell in love with it. He said it's one of those times where being in the right place at the right time just benefited him because it was one of their biggest hits.
Wow. I mean, and I said it's a good song. I said it's a timeless super sounds of the 70s classic.
It really is. And it probably would fall under the yacht rock category we were just discussing.
Absolutely. I'm sure if you went on to Spotify, assuming your homepage still works and it's not a TikTok feed, and you went to the yacht rock playlist, I'm sure that's like the fifth song down.
But I don't hear that song that often. Like, I have heard it a lot, but it's not one I feel like it's overplayed.
I don't think so. I mean, it's identifiable from that era, but no, it's certainly not like some of the songs that you hear sort of every 5 minutes, it seems.
So there we go. All right. So my next one is one that is going to be completely out of left field because it's different than everything else we've talked about. It is Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey.
Yeah, I would imagine as we move into the depths of this Joy's Spotify Wrapped, there's going to be a lot of songs from this era. And I'm taking is that a 90s Mariah Carey?
Early 90s.
Yeah, I thought as much. So I'm surprised so far that there hasn't been more of that stuff, to be honest.
See, that's what I said in this. I agree with you, Tim. I thought that, but this list surprised me. I was in a different world in 2022. Maybe it's because we were coming out of lockdown. I don't know. I needed to chill out, but as I'm sitting here in my Sublime shirt. But anyways, that's why I was writing Tim earlier. I was like, I surprised myself with this episode, and that's why he's thinking this. But I do love me some Mariah Carey. So with that being said, I just picked this song. Well, I didn't pick the song. It popped up on it. It's just one of my favorites. And it's very quintessential 90s in the music video. She's like on a tire swing. And, Mariah had that big curly hair and just kind of was that what you think of a 90s person, right, Tim? Mm-hmm. And so what I thought was interesting is I found out Always Be My Baby, Mariah Carey actually wrote and directed the music video herself.
Oh, wow.
which makes sense why it fits kind of her style now that I see that and I know that fact. Because she's like, it opens up and she's like on a playground, on a campground. She's swinging over a lake. If you've ever seen that, it's kind of an iconic photo from Mariah where she's like swinging on like a tire swing and it's over like a river or lake thing. That's from this music video.
Oh, okay.
A little girl and boy sneak out to embark on a romantic night, little cutes playing around, swimming in the lake, having fun. But I thought it was cool because I would have never thought Mariah would have directed her own music video.
I mean, she's a creative type. And I think when you sort of rise to that kind of position where you can decide that kind of stuff, you think, yeah, why not? I'll direct the music video.
Well, and it's not like that song is... It's pretty like, I don't want to say cliche pop because I don't want to call it cliche. I love this song, but it's very quintessential pop. And so like, it wouldn't be that hard to come up with a music video to go with it.
No. And I think another thing, thinking about it, sometimes people in the entertainment industry take an opportunity to direct a music video so they can get their SAG card.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's smart.
Because I think to get in SAG, you have to have done something like that. But you don't get to do something like that unless you're in SAG. So the fact that it's your music video, you can direct it and then you can apply for your SAG card.
Huh. I never even thought about that, but that makes sense. All right. Now I'm going to Google how many people have done that. I'm sure there's tons.
I'm sure.
I mean, I can't blame them. I'd do it. Might as well. It takes, but you probably learn. I mean, directing a music video seems like it would be fun. Not saying I'd be good at it, but it does seem fun.
Yeah, I mean, because it's sort of low risk directing, I suppose. So yeah, if you're directing Thriller or something, that's different. But most pop promos are 3 or 4 minutes long. That's going to be shown on MTV or YouTube now. It's not high risk, really. There's probably not a huge budget involved. So yeah, it probably would be fun.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, a lot of music videos are very similar in the sense that, like, and especially if it's a song like Always Be My Baby, like I'm saying, the topic wouldn't be that hard to figure out. Something related to a couple together, exactly like she did Young Romance, wouldn't take you too long to figure out how to. I'm not saying I could do it, but I don't feel like it'd be that hard.
Exactly. Well, I wrote and directed my music video of Night Rider that I've got on YouTube. So,
Well, where's your SAG card, Tim?
And edited and cinematography and technical direction and
anything else?
compiling files on my computer and making edits. That was me.
All right. Insert eye roll. Moving along.
As you should, let me tell you.
All right, everybody. So my next one is, and this is why I said this list is surprising to me and Tim. The next one's Shadow Dancing, Andy Gibb.
Really?
Yeah. Where the heck did that come from?
Now, I wonder whether when you're working or whether you're driving around, you're putting on certain playlists that have this kind of stuff on. So maybe you think, well, I like the sounds of the 70s, so I'm listening to a 70s playlist, and you're getting fed these tracks. I don't know.
I mean, it's very possible, and I'm sure it is, but it's hard to believe that these are the top songs I listened for the entirety of 2022. But I also think you're onto something, Tim, because I tend to listen to more kind of mellower music when I'm working.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm listening to that 8 hours a day versus maybe an hour before I go to bed every night.
Sure.
So that could be it. But anyway, I mean, I like all these songs. It was just surprising to me.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what my Wrapped will be like. I really hope that I do stick with Spotify, regardless of what I said earlier, because I'll be just curious to know how this Wrapped is going to work out. Now, I know there's an app that you can get where you put in your Spotify credentials, and it will give you like a mini Wrapped as you go along.
Huh. I've seen some people share that, but I haven't done it. I'd be curious.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it because I wanted to wait for the proper Wrap thing to come out.
I mean, that's fair. I had completely forgot it was a thing. And then when we were talking to Phil last week, I signed up to my Spotify the other day and I looked, I was like, hey, that's my 2022 Wrapped. And to be fair, everyone, I did hit shuffle on this, and maybe it was just because it's got quite a few songs on it. Maybe it was just feeling the 70s from Spotify's side. I don't know.
I mean, it could be.
Me and Andy Gibb just hanging out over here. All right. So Shadow Dancing was written by all four Gibb brothers again. Andy joined his older siblings, Barry, Robin, and Maurice, for a writing session in Hollywood, where they were filming the movie Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club. He said, we literally sat down, and in 10 minutes, we had a group going, singing the chorus part, and that was it. It took them 10 minutes to write the song.
Wow. I think when you have a collection of songwriters of that sort of ilk, I don't think it takes long to create like that.
Mm-mm. Well, and they said basically what they did is they would compose the music first, and then they would fill in the lyrics with relatable story, often set in a club where the song would be played. In this song, Andy Gibb is dialed in on his lady, so everything that surrounds him fades away, and the two of them are just shadow dancing.
There we go. Fabulous.
That's so cool, because I've always, it's always interesting to find out, do the lyrics or does the music come first? Because I've heard both, but sometimes I've heard some artists say they just have like a little piece of it in their mind. Like it could be like a guitar lick, or it could just be like a little lyric they've been thinking of, and they build around that. Mm-hmm. And that makes the most sense to me. But I had never thought about writing it based off of like a club, like a scenario. Like you put a scenario out there, like you're in a club. Mm-hmm. That's kind of cool. I wouldn't have ever thought to do that.
Interesting.
I guess that's why I'm not one of the Gibbs brothers and worth as much money as they are.
Exactly. But you're a lot more fun to be around than the Gibbs brothers, let me tell you.
Fine. All right. So my next one is one that is a 90s song, but it's probably not the 90s song Tip's thinking of. And I'm shocked this is on here. It's If I Could Turn Back Time by Cher.
A classic. The music video where Cher is not wearing a great deal at all, and then she's very suggestively sitting astride a massive gun on an aircraft carrier or something. And I do know that I think the Navy, or whoever that destroyer was owned by, they got into a lot of trouble because they had a program where they would let you rent out or use various military stuff for TV and film. And then when that came out and they used it, I think there was some kind of whoop-de-doo, and they decided not to do that anymore.
So Tim is right on the money, close to what some of my facts are here. So If I Could Turn Back Time music video was filmed aboard the USS Missouri while stationed in the former Long Beach Naval Shipyard at Pier D, along with the crew. Cher recalled to Q Magazine, December 2013, If I Could Turn Back Time video we shot for days. There's a whole story. I climbed up on stuff. I was running away from a lover. I was in a cage, and then I was in a speedboat. And when the director got to edit, he just said, bad word this that I can't say on our podcast. Here's the money shot. Me on the battleship with the sailors climbing up on here. And he said, and they were real sailors. They were really funny. They just kept calling me ma'am.
There we go.
So they filmed a whole thing, and then they decided, we're just going to go with her up on there.
Yeah. And the other thing is Cher's son is playing guitar in the backing band.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't even know I knew he played guitar.
Yeah. I remember at the time people were saying, oh, it's nepotism. Cher's son is in the band. But apparently she said, I'm not having him in the band if he can't play properly. And he worked really hard and was in the band.
I was going to say, if he could play the guitar, he could play the guitar.
Exactly.
Like, regardless of who you are, if you could play, you could play. There's nothing we can do about it. All right. So the next one is one that I don't know what. I'm surprised about these next three songs, Tim. So I've got three songs left, and still, once again, it's CCR, Fortunate Son.
Yeah, that's isn't that like one of those songs they play on classic rock radio every fifth song?
It is. I have a big thing with CCR, so I feel like it's just because I listen to a lot of CCR, it makes it into the groove somewheres. Because it's like the only CCR song anyone since the beginning time I've ever known. So to make this more interesting and not about, the Vietnam protesting and all that good stuff, because that's the thing, is it's literally the song that's used in every movie about the Vietnam War since the beginning of time.
Sure.
Every single one. They're on, it goes, and they're sitting in a capsule, and everybody's in the helicopter, and some guy's going, oh my God, they're talking to each other, they're getting ready to jump out of the helicopter. as they're going to fight the Viet Cong. Like that's every movie. If I had to take a shot for every movie that's been in, I would be drunk by the end of this podcast. But anyway, why it made it on there, I don't know. But apparently I like the song. I like CCR, but Tim's right. So basically, the song is this song spoke out against the Vietnam War, but this is the key though, and this is why I think I like it, Tim, and this is probably why it rings more true to me than some other people. My father was a POW in Vietnam. And he talks very heavily about when he came home, it was very different for Vietnam soldiers than like World War II soldiers, because when World War II soldiers came home, they were like, oh my God, you guys are the greatest generation. Everything about you guys are all amazing. Whereas when Vietnam soldiers came home, they were treated very poorly because there was a lot of people who were against the war, and they took that out on the people who went to war.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what the Bruce Springsteen song Born in the USA is about. I mean, that is a major key, stadium filling, fist pumping. Yeah, America. But if you listen to the lyrics, it covers that topic entirety. It is somebody who's coming back from the war, coming back from Vietnam, coming back to their small town, and nobody wants to know them.
Well, my dad talked about someone spitting on him once when he came back. Wow. Like actually spitting on him. So, and I mean, this is a man who was a POW who woke up in a hospital in Germany, has no recollection of what happened. So like he went through the ringer. We joke about my father's done a little bit of everything, but he really did. So anyway, why I think this song was so important for me is while it was against the Vietnam War, it was in support of the soldiers fighting there.
Got you.
So that's the difference of Fortunate Son versus some of the other kind of anti-Vietnam songs. Because, it talks about, not having a silver spoon in your mouth and things like that. Because certain people could get out of going and certain people couldn't. To be fair, my father was one of the few who actually volunteered. But that's a debate for another time. He had a really bad life at home, but he volunteered. But anyway, so another thing I thought was interesting is, who could end up fighting. It's not the senator's son. Like that's one of the classic things. But it says on November 16th, 1969, Creedence performed Fortunate Son on the Ed Sullivan Show, but the producers didn't realize what it was about because they were always trying to avoid controversial topics.
Yeah, I think the Ed Sullivan Show, the Ed Sullivan Theatre in New York City, it was always tried to be super squeaky clean. And, having the Beatles on there in the 60s was seen as incredibly controversial, because John might be tapping his foot in a rather provocative manner or something. It was that kind of stuff. So to have them performing on there and not understand the lyrical content does seem a little bit short-sighted.
Yeah, well, the other thing about it is that song doesn't hold back on what it's about. It's pretty obvious if you listen to it.
Yeah.
It's not like there's any innuendos. It's literally saying, who's pointing a gun at you. It literally says that in the song. So it's not like, but they said that they've changed. We all know about the Light My Fire thing. I think we've talked about it like 10 times on the podcast, but there's also Let's Spend the Night Together. Apparently they made them change the lyrics on that. So they had a big habit of letting people come on, but they would change the lyrics a little. And I'm sitting here thinking, they would have to change the whole song. They tried to change Fortunate Son,
Yeah, they'd have to make it an instrumental.
John Fogerty, you're out. Good luck. So here's another one, Tim, these are the last two. I don't know what was on my brain in 2022. Maybe I just needed to calm down, but it's Shambhala, Three Dogs Night.
Oh, wow. Yeah, these are, the bulk of these songs surprise me. We do this podcast every week. I think I've got a good hold on the sort of music that you like. And yes, you like the classics. You like the 60s. You like some of this 70s style music. But I see the bulk of your listening is rooted in sort of 90s stuff. So, but this is just like one after the other. I'm like, really? These are your top songs you listen to?
I guess it just depends on the year, Tim. I was in a mood, okay?
Yeah, I would expect, the Glee soundtrack to be 1 through 10 or something. I don't know.
Anyway, so back to Shambhala by Three Dogs Night. Maybe it's because I'm named after a Three Dogs Night song. We'll never know.
Possibly.
But I didn't know. So Shambhala is a spiritual word from the Buddhist religion. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Because, you hear that song and you have no idea what he's talking about. Not really. But so apparently it's Tibetan Buddhists believe that it is a mystical hidden land somewhere in the Himalayan mountains. The songwriter Daniel Moore told this story. In 1972, my brother Matthew called me and informed me that he had received a letter from Dorothy Begg at Lake Pleasant, Massachusetts, that told him where and who he had been in his past lives. He sent a letter to her requesting this information. I don't know who she is and how she found him, but all right. After recording several past lives in the letter ended with, "My messenger tells me to tell you, let your light shine in the halls of Shambhala." In the phone conversation at that point, Matt said, "Well, what the hell is that?" So I did some research and found the references to the word in 5,000-year-old Sanskrit, I guess.
It's Sanskrit.
Yeah. And basically it's what Buddhists were talking about. And Sanskrit. So, I mean, it's kind of random. I don't know who Dorothy Begg is and why she's contacting him from Massachusetts, but I would have never guessed that's what the song's were. I wonder if Dorothy was like, she listened to the radio one day and she's like, "Hey, wait a minute." Sounds really familiar.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of songs that have been written where it's just a conversation that went on, and then a songwriter would hear it and they think, that'd be a song. I mean, it's like Money for Nothing, the song that Phil spoke about on the previous episode that he picked out as one of his most influential songs. Mark Knopfler was in a Best Buy or a Fry's in the 80s, and he was wandering around there whilst on tour, and he heard a chap in the warehouse say, we got to get some color TVs, we got microwave ovens, custom kitchens, deliveries, and he's like, this guy was spieling all this stuff off, and he was writing it down. And that is Money for Nothing. That's where that line comes from, just from some guy in a warehouse just spieling some off.
And see, this is why I say it all the time. I will never be a songwriter. That would never register with me, Tim, not once.
No, but I mean, people who have that mind where they can create like that, they can take inspiration from all kinds of things. And I said, well, I would just be in a Best Buy and I hear someone just spouting that stuff off and wouldn't think anything of it. But, Mark Knopfler with his creative brain is... he's hearing that. He's seeing TVs with the MTV logo on it, and everything just sort of comes together, and then you get Money for Nothing.
Well, remember we were talking about a few weeks ago, I don't remember what song, or a few episodes back, I talked in one of the episodes, Dolly wrote a song about getting oysters and how she was on a diet, and so she couldn't eat the oysters. That 3 doors down, they're having a party. She literally wrote a song because people were eating oysters 3 doors down from her, and she couldn't eat them.
Yeah. There we are. As I said, I've written a few songs, but I'm no songwriter. I'm a better collaborator. But to have that kind of fertile mind that can create from nothing is a very special skill.
It is. And me and Tim were very jealous. I would love to be able to. And it's interesting, though, when you really hear the artist talk about it, because some of the stuff that comes out of you would have never thought. I know there's this one with... there's a song with Gwen Stefani where she's talking about she's like, sour milk fell on the floor. I bet you didn't shut the refrigerator door, something about sour milk on the floor. Mm-hmm. And she says it really fast because, she kind of has that rhythmic sound to her voice. And so nobody knew what she was saying in that part. And I was watching our favorite, Mr. Corden, with her on Carpool Karaoke, and he asked her what she said, and it's like, shut the refrigerator door, something like that, there's sour milk on the floor, but she says it so rhythmically and so fast, you would have never guessed that. And he was like, so it's about sour milk being on the floor? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, whether she wrote that song, I don't know if Gwen Stefani personally wrote it, but whoever wrote it, was writing about sour milk. Does Gwen Stefani write music? I've never looked into it.
I mean, I assume she probably does. I mean, she's been around long enough, you would assume she probably does. But I think a lot of this pop music, as we know, all comes from Swedish people. That's
true. Those darn Swedes. I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know. That's why I'm trying to learn Swedish. We're recording this on March 22nd, and I'm still doing my Duolingo.
Joy is still doing her French Duolingo, though both me and Tim admitted we did not do it before the podcast tonight, so we have to do it after.
Yeah, I don't want to lose my streak because Duo just says, OMG, you hit a 92-day streak. Woohoo, now don't forget to practice today. So I need to do it when we finish recording.
Mine says, hey, it's Lily. That's a 68-day streak is impressive. I guess keep it going or don't. Encouragement is duos thing. So what that means to me, I don't know. Oh my gosh. So this is not music news or anything, Tim, but I have to ask you before I do my final song. Did you see the stuff about Katy Perry on American Idol?
No. I mean, I follow Katy Perry on Twitter and Instagram, and she posts clips from American Idol, but I don't really pay a lot of attention to them because that's a program I don't really enjoy.
So I don't care for American Idol either, but I was just scrolling the internet as we do in 2023, and I saw a headline about her being on American Idol, and it was like this woman was on there who is doing an audition, and she was 25 years old and she had 3 children. And Katie made a comment that I was shocked to hear. Something alluding to Katie did something and the girl goes, oh, I hope she doesn't, faint on the table. And Katie said something along the lines of, let's just say she made a very rude comment about her already having 3 kids at 25 years old on national TV.
Oh, dear.
I was very disappointed in this.
Yeah, I mean, that's not nice at all. But the other thing you have to realize is that the American Idol auditions are completely contrived. They are not auditions. They know who's going to win it even before the series starts. And they are the worst of scripted reality TV shows.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know whether that was an off-the-cuff Katy Perry comment. I mean, I want to defend her, but at the same time, if she says something that's not good, I mean, that's, she shouldn't do that.
So this person said that the producers contacted her on her TikTok. So, they found the girl, like you're saying, like she didn't just go in and audition. And so she came in and she says on her TikTok she wasn't expecting it and that she was really hurt by the comment. Now, how much is that for her to gain publicity on TikTok? I don't know. But she sounded really genuine when she was talking about the girl who was auditioning, and I don't know her name. But I was just like shocked. I was like, it was just really saddening to hear because we already know that these are already ramped up, reality TV as it is. But I was just like, oh, I usually like everything Katy Perry does. This one makes me sad.
Yeah, I mean, I normally like everything Katy Perry does too. So it does sadden me a little bit if that's what she said. But I mean, I haven't seen the clip, so I don't know. And as I said, American Idol is so ridiculously contrived. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. And the other thing is I used to like some of those. I still watch The Masked Singer because I don't like have the weird auditions and stuff, even though it is weird in and of itself. Tim will tell you it's weird. He knows that. But that's the only one I watch. I remember I used to watch it when it first came out a little bit when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And the thing I couldn't stand, and this is going to make me sound, Tim, like an evil person. But what I couldn't stand on them was the sap stories. So, and here's what I'm saying. So they would have like 2 people auditioning. One person's mother had just died of cancer. And another person was just a normal, everyday person who worked at the bank. Mm-hmm. And they would spend 30 minutes going on and on about this sap story with the girl whose mother's died and how much this means to her. And then the person at the bank, they would spend 30 seconds on, well, girl at the bank could out-sing person whose mom died over here, but they're putting all the emotion into this one. And so everybody loves them. And I'm like, I get that happened to her, but this is a singing competition. Yeah, and this girl sang better than you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a singing competition, but it isn't. It's a scripted reality show.
I know, but in my mind, that's the way I'm thinking of it. Like, if I'm literally voting on who sang better, I'm sorry, a girl who worked at the bank whose mother might not have died of cancer, she sang better.
Exactly. I mean, my opinion with all of those type programs is I just don't watch them because they're terrible.
I still like The Masked Singer, but mostly I like The Masked Singer because not for the singing or like, I just like to try to guess who it is before.
Yeah.
I like to figure out who it is.
The Masked Singer is an entertainment show. Yeah. It's not a singing contest. I mean, I've seen bits of it and it's like penguin versus bear, peacock versus antelope or whatever.
Yeah. And it's just cute. And I like seeing the costumes because there's somebody who works really hard on those costumes, like an actual artist. So that's kind of fun too. But I don't really watch anything else out of that. And what I did when The Voice came out, watch like the first season, and that got burned on me real quick. A lot of these shows start in other countries and come to America too.
Yeah, I think The Voice is a UK one.
Yeah, X Factor was. I think America's Got Talent was originally Brits Got Talent. Even The Masked Singer came from like Asia.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right. I got one last song for everybody. And once again, I was surprised by this one. And if you are friends with me on Facebook, my Facebook status was a reference to this song earlier because I may have been listening to this, all these songs as I was writing out my notes. It is For What It's Worth, Buffalo Springfield.
I actually listened to a Buffalo Springfield album today as part of my album of the day of the 1,001 albums you must listen to before you die challenge, which I'm doing with our listener, Megan.
Well, I hope it was good because I love Buffalo Springfield.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this was the album they recorded before they broke up. And you can tell that there's a lot of forces going on there where there's so many good songwriters all wanting to write all these great songs. And it was just too much to have all those people in the same band.
That's always the way it goes towards the end. And they probably don't even want to be in the same room with each other.
Exactly.
Well, my fact for this is written by Buffalo Springfield's guitarist, Stephen Stills, so Crosby, Stills, and Nash. The song was not about anti-war gatherings, but rather youth gatherings protesting anti-loitering laws. And the closing of the West Hollywood nightclub Pandora's Box. Stills was not there when they closed the club, but heard about it from his bandmates. It was on their first album, and it was not supposed to be included on it originally. But after For What It's Worth became the top single, they replaced it with Don't Scold Me and reissued the album. So I thought it was interesting though, because I've always thought it was an anti-war song. I assumed. Yeah,
I mean, all of the Buffalo Springfield, Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young, all of them have a sort of protest element to their songwriting. They're never afraid to speak up for a cause. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe I thought that was an anti-war one. I didn't realize it was against anti-loitering.
Yeah, anti-loitering laws, which makes sense though. Because it says youth gatherings protesting anti-loitering laws. The anti-loitering thing is a big thing, though, in a lot of these kind of places where you have a lot of homelessness, like in California and these areas, because people will get in trouble for just existing, but they don't have anywhere to go.
Sure.
And so I see why that could have been, written into this song. With that being said, Tim, I was not expecting this to turn into a yacht rock episode, but we really brought it up. Who knew I was into such big yacht rock? News to me.
Yeah, I was expecting Bikini Kill, Blink-182, Bowling for Soup.
Maybe a Britney Spears song in there.
Boys. I mean, that 3 Queen songs. I mean, that's what I was expecting. I mean, this is an eye-opener. I literally cannot wait for my Wrapped, because I will do a Wrapped episode myself.
I'm so
see
excited.
what this looks like.
Because the thing about it is, though, is it just goes to show you we all have layers, Tim.
Absolutely. We're veritable onions.
But yeah, this one shocked me. And so when I brought it up, I was like, oh, I'm changing my topic for the episode. But I was like, these are pretty classic songs. So I just wanted to bring in some little things we didn't know. But yeah, there you go. Do you have anything for the people, Tim?
Just be incredibly extra kind to everyone that you meet.
And I second that. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you later. Bye-bye.